guess we have a bunch of people here, so I guess we can start. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this event, Portals and Pláticas. My name is Sarah. I work for the Philosophical Research Society. If you don't know who we are, because I'm assuming there are people from not just Los Angeles here, but maybe from other parts of the country. We are a 501c3 cultural organization, and we have this amazing historical place here in Los Angeles, Los Feliz. We have like an historic library with 30,000 rare volumes. We have an auditorium where we do all kinds of events. We've been so busy, events about everything. We do like lectures about esotericism, occult, could be like even about history of Los Angeles or music, anything. We do concert, we do screenings. Really, we're open to anything. We also have an art gallery, so right now we have like a very wonderful exhibition. So if you're in Los Angeles, you should come and check it out because it's really amazing. And we were founded in 1930s by Manly Hall, so we're still continuing like to bring his mission to life since then, almost 100 years ago. So welcome. So I just want to introduce briefly our guests for tonight. We have Edgar Frias, Mother Hagua, and Reina Prado. So I guess I'm gonna let you introduce yourselves, so because you know the best who you are. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that wonderful introduction. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to be able to all connect today. I just want to give like a short little overview about what we're going to be doing today. We're going to start by calling in the directions. And after that, we're gonna do a little bit of an intro and have a plática together. We're gonna share about ourselves. We will be sharing at the end some special offerings that we have for folks to be able to connect with us. And we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. But if you have like a question that comes up as we talk, feel free to share it in the chat. We'll make sure that we answer your question before we end. But with all that said, I want to welcome Reina and start the calling in of the directions.
So we just invite you all to drop in, and however you are in this moment is perfect. And so we're going to start calling the directions with the first one is the south. So if you're able to face the south, perfect. If not, intend to connect to the direction of the south. Guardians of the South, element of fire, Guato the serpent. Thank you for illuminating the path for us today as we gather for Portals y Pláticas. May we shed what needs to be shed and come into our divine luminosity. May it be so. And we turn to the right, facing the west. We welcome the guardians of the west, Grandmother Moon, the element of water, and Hagua Roselot. Come around our circle, be with us. Allow us to come and share those things of the underworld, the middle world, and the upper world with no fear and an open heart. May it be so. Turn to your right and face the north.
I want to invite in the guardians of the north, the element of earth, the sacred bones within us, our body, our relative, the land, our sacred kin, our ancestors. We want to honor you as we speak, as we connect, as we open up a portal together. Now turning our attention to the east, we call in the guardians of the east, the sacred element of air, new beginnings, fresh breath, opening up portals, cycles and communication. May our words, may our intentions, may everything we share between us be for the highest good of those who are here and those who are connected to us.
At this moment, I invite you to connect with Mother Earth below you. If you're able to touch the ground or plant your feet firmly upon the ground. With love, with respect, with gratitude, in reverence, we offer our love to Tonantzintlalli, Mother Earth, heart of the earth. Thank you for holding us. Thank you for sustaining us. As we connect to you with our roots, which are deep and ancient, may we be reminded that we are all part of you, part of the same organism, cells within this living, breathing, beautiful planet. Thank you, thank you, thank you for receiving what we are releasing here today. Thank you also for sending your loving transmission through our roots into our bodies, our physical bodies, and into our hearts. At this moment, I invite you to lift up your hands, to turn your internal gaze towards the direction of the heart of the universe above. Wherever this heart is at this moment, we are tuning in and connecting to this radiant golden heart, the heart of the universe, the heart of the cosmic mother. Receiving her blessing, her love. We come to you with respect, with love, with gratitude in our hearts. May we be reminded that we are more than these physical bodies, that we are more than our egos, more than our personalities. May we be reminded that we are spirit having a human experience. And in this direction, we also honor the galactic tribes, our bright ancestors, watching over us as star beings. I invite you to receive this transmission from the heart of the universe into your own heart. And I invite you to place your hands over your heart, the center point within all these directions. At this moment, we are balanced between the worlds, between all directions, between heaven and earth. From this direction, we honor, we give our respect and our gratitude to our spirit guides, our guardian angels, our higher selves. We invite them to be present in this space. As we speak, may we speak from our hearts. As we listen, may we listen with our hearts. May every action that we take be also taken from the heart. Thank you for joining us. We welcome you with your gifts and your wisdom. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for holding space for us to call in the directions. And thank you, Reina and Mother Hawa, for that beautiful offering. I am so happy for us to be able to talk today and to connect. I've had the most miraculous connections with both of you in so many different ways, and I'm so excited for us to share about ourselves and to talk about who we are. I thought the best way for us to introduce ourselves is just to share with our own words who we are and the many multi-dimensional ways that we show up in this world. I'm going to start myself just to share a little bit about me. So my name is Edgar Fabian Frias. I am currently in Los Angeles on the unceded territory of the Tongva community here. And I am from Mexico. My family is from Jalisco and Zacatecas. I am part of the Virarica community, and I am so grateful to be able to be someone who's been called to be of service in the many different ways that I show up in the world. I am an artist. I'm a person who has worked across many different mediums. And I'm also someone who's done a lot of healing work as a therapist, as a brujequis, and as someone who has also organized and held space for people. I've created everything from queer and trans music and arts festivals to helping support ceremonial spaces for folks. I'm someone who loves to be slippery and loves to live in the liminal and loves to build connections and bridges across disciplines, practices. I've been called to really be someone who weaves webs in between a lot of things that have been disconnected because of colonization and white supremacist structures. There are a lot of us who are feeling called to be web weavers in this way, and I'm just really honored to be here with all of you and to be able to share about the many places I show up. So thank you.
Madrecita, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you. My name is Tania Eunice Cacao Orellana, better known as Madre Jaguar. And I am currently living and loving somewhere in the cloud forest of Veracruz in Mexico. I was born in LA. I am the child of Salvadorian immigrants of Mayan, Pipil, Nahuatl, and Garifuna descent. And I am a lover. I am an artist. I am a cosmic interpreter. I also like to create platforms and curate events, and basically create spaces for people like ourselves, artists, healers, queer beings, poets, to come together and share what we love doing. I am also a healing practitioner. I am a Reiki master. What else? I've been studying traditional Mexican medicine and Curanderismo for the past 10 years or so. I am a tarot reader. I've been reading tarot for 20 years. And all I can say is that I was always that child that was talking to plants and talking to imaginary friends that were always watching me. And somehow I figured it out, and this is what I do for a living. This is what I do for my life every day. And I'm really, really excited to be here, really excited to be with Edgar and Reina, who I deeply admire and who inspire me with everything that they do, and who I'm really happy to call my friends. So thank you for this platform for us to come and connect and chat. And thank you to everyone that is here listening and helping us weave this tapestry. Thank you, thank you.
Blessings, everyone. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Madre Jaguar. It's been an honor to be of service in these ways. I came into this work as an artist, as a poet and performance artist, and through a poem called Santa Perversa, a prayer in the poem, was channeled. And that was really the seed of the work that I do, which are the Love Limpias. I'm a holistic energy practitioner. I've been doing this for about 10 years. And I also teach different holistic energy modalities. My practice is called Healing Queen, and I'm also based in unceded Tongva territories here in Southern California. I'm more of a kitchen witch. creating different concoctions and food, and that's how this work really started to grow. If I think of some roots with that, but always mindful of the practices of how to honor the ancestors, how to be connected, communing, conversing with them, and like many of us, practices that were not passed down, at least not in my family. And so, me doing this work has been a full circle moment to allow my ancestors to also feel at ease, because they've had caution, they do worry, and yet we've had those beautiful conversations about like, no, this is how we are showing up in the world and being of service. So it's a great honor to be here, and yeah, I'm excited to see what comes through our plática.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I've seen some lovely folks in the chat who said hello. Want to just invite you all, if you feel comfortable sharing, saying where you're tuning in from, or just sharing a little bit about yourself. It's so lovely for us to all be here connecting with each other. And it's so nice to see some familiar faces. So just want to say hi to everyone out there. And, I think, we're gonna try to be as organic as we can in this conversation. I do have a couple of things that I feel might be important for us to talk about. I think one thing that both of you have already kind of brought in a little bit is the journey that, kind of took us here where we are, right? We are formed beings in this way right now. We're still obviously emerging, but I'm just curious if either of you would like to just share a little bit about, what maybe feels important to share right now about your journey of arriving to this place, or anything that you feel is important to share about, what it means to be here right now.
For me at the moment, I think it's important to understand how the ways that I show up have been a process of remembering, and that in that remembrance, I'm reminded of the wording of Maestra Amalia Mesa Baines, and to putting the re in parentheses and member, and the idea that it's not just a mental, but it's also a physical. It's like in our bones, right? You called in the bones. And so the remembering becomes this process of weaving in and integrating. And I think that's where I'm at right now in my journey. It's the remembrance, but also the integration of these different bits of me, maybe through different times, maybe even through different communities, right? And that we all came together at a moment in literally Southern California, in Los Angeles. Like, that is so amazing to me, right? Now, would I have met either of you in a different moment? Maybe. I'm sure I would have. But it's that beauty of when you're in this, when you're communing in these ways, all these different folks start to come in and reflect that, right? And reflect that. And so then it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm the weird one, or I was like the black sheep in the family, or, or excommunicated by family members, right? Like, it doesn't matter anymore.
I'm trying to remember the exact moment when we all met, but I feel like it must have been through Mystic Bazaar, right? Which is a project that I created, which was to create platforms, or a platform for healers, artists, musicians to come together. And I remember when I came up with the idea for Mystic Bazaar, it was from this deep longing for community, precisely because I had grown up, I grew up away from family as a child of immigrants. It was just my mom, my siblings, and me. And I was always the weird kid, right? I was always out there. I was the artist of the family. And as an adult, I really wanted meaningful connections and I wanted to connect with people that were in the same frequency that I was. There came a point where I was no longer really resonating with going to bars and meeting people there or partying. And I remember thinking like I just want to go somewhere where I can hang out with people and we can have a sound bath and like someone can be reading tarot cards and someone else can be giving Reiki. And then I was like, I don't see it happening, so I just have to create it, right? And so I took a leap of faith and I invited people that I knew, and people that I knew started inviting other people. And suddenly Mystic Bazaar translated into this network, right? Mystic Bazaar is no longer like it's no longer what it was because we all grew up, we evolved, I moved away. But that network is still there, even though a lot of us like have moved away from LA, some of us like moved to Mexico, to other countries, and there's still that connection, right? And I feel like my whole life has been like that, where I didn't necessarily have someone passing down the wisdom to me. I didn't really have someone like that had already paved the path for me. So I had to like grab my little etheric machete and I had to create that path. And in return, I received the abundance of community and of walking a path that, yes, it's unconventional, but I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And there were a couple of times where I tried to kind of go back into the matrix and it would last a couple of days. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing so hard over here with what you're sharing. It's, yeah, so wonderful to remember those moments when we first connected and those beautiful rhizomatic webs that we started to connect together. And, so many folks started to become a part of these webs. And I do feel so, so strongly, like both of you, that, there was a etheric machete needed to clear away so much of the conditioning or the ideas that I had growing up of how I was supposed to exist in the world. And someone who's gone a lot through like Western academia and has really been taught to like separate myself. And there's been so much of myself that's been kind of pushing up against that. And that's why I really use the word slippery as something to really try to reclaim this connection to being someone who is multifaceted and connects with many different communities, and also is showing up in a way that is honoring of our indigenous ways of being, which is not about separating, and it's about having our practices, our ways of relating in community, being held together. And I think, it has definitely taken me a while to get to this place. I've been really honored and blessed to have a lot of guidance along the way. As I have felt alone, I have also realized that there have been a lot of people and spirits and plants and animals and crystals that have come and that have blessed me with their presence and giving me permission to connect deeper with myself and to connect deeper with them. And that has opened up so much possibility. And I, feel so similar to both of you in saying that it's also gifted us this beautiful community that we have now that is always growing and mutating and evolving and really showing up to support people in the way that's needed. And I think, I would not have imagined this as a young person. I think I felt very alone too. I felt very weird and felt like my vision of what my future was going to be wasn't really being represented back to me. And I think that is also something that really excites me about us coming together, is that I think the three of us are people who have really used those etheric machetes to create space, to forge space, to also clear away, right? And I think that's so inspiring. And I see people also being inspired by the work that we're doing and also showing up in their own authentic power to also clear and make space too. And I think that's something that I'm feeling really enlivened as I'm talking about it. I can imagine other people are feeling, the energy of, what that does in the world, what that creates in the world. And especially with, this idea of New Earth being in our title, like, I do feel like this is something that we've been envisioning, we've been cultivating and caring for together. And it's something that we're seeing more and more every day. And I'm actually remembering the first day that you and I met, Madre Hawad. We got a tattoo together. I have mine here. Wait, there it is, right here. And I remember on the day that you and I first met, we were actually going to the desert to teach a class. And on that day, I remember you and I having a conversation of like, is it possible for witches and healers and artists to be brought more into community or to be supported? And I think we've seen so much transformation and change since the first day that we've met, right? And, I'm really grateful for you bringing up the Mystic Bazaar, because that has been such a powerful project that is still living through us, right? As you named. Yeah, so I'm going to stop talking there. I'm curious if anything's coming up as I'm sharing.
I feel very emotional to think about the journey, right? Like, yes, Edgar and I got matching tattoos on the first date. Probably first and only time I'll ever do that, but it just felt so right. And the tattoo that we got was "She Has Risen," which around the time, there was this resurgence of the divine feminine. And I feel like now, like even thinking about that time, like I remember when I first started exploring my gifts and openly talking about the things that I was interested in. I think I was the only person with crystals in their pocket. It was very weird, right? And now it's like it's part of pop culture, right? Everyone has at least like a little crystal that they carry with them. And that to me is a testament of how we've been planting seeds that are sprouting and that are growing. And when we talk about the new earth and the title for this plática, um, it was just something that came. Like I channeled it at that moment and I shared it without knowing that that was gonna be the title, right? Um, but New Earth is already here. It's been in the process. It's happening, even in the midst of all the chaos, right? And I feel like I'm also a doula, a birth doula, and I get to see that during birth we'll have those moments of chaos and darkness and feeling really raw and vulnerable, and the need to go through those portals, right? That and the need to face that pain, to look at that darkness in order to go through it and get to the other side. I know that we are planting seeds right now that maybe we probably won't get to see them sprouting. But I know that in a few generations, those seeds will be a forest. And I will continue planting the seeds.
It's so beautiful to imagine, right, what that possibility is, and even just to invite us now to imagine that possibility of an earth, right, que we may not see, but we are living its frequencies in this moment, right? And I think that's part of this practice. And for me, it's a practice. right? And the consistency of me showing up to the practice is what opens up these connections. Whether it's, channeling, whether it's, creating a circle where we gather together. And I think I hope that one of the takeaways that folks who are joining us today and will listen in the future is that you remember whatever your practice is contributing to this vibratory, like it feels like a drum and bass session, right? It's like it's contributing to that move, right? And in that move, we get to, help feed the earth, but we're also being fed amongst each other. And then, it's all working simultaneously. And if anything, in being more consistent with this practice and just seeing, I think the word you used earlier, Edgar, was liminal. And there is for me comfort in that liminality. I love being in those middle spaces. And it's also important for us to bring from those spaces of the liminal, Nepantla, honoring Gloria and Saldua, and anchoring it, right? May it be a seed, may it be compost. But anchoring it, right? It's also so vital to anchor. And I think my caution when we get very excited about elevations and ascensions is like, no, back in. Like, it's right here. It's right here, right now. And it's so important to ground that too, right? Yes, we may be, ascending and whatever practice that we do, but bring it in, because we need it now. We need it here, right? As well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I don't know, Mata, did you have something you wanted to say? I kind of saw you going towards the mic.
Yes, I 100% agree with you, Reina. And I feel like that's something that I see a lot in the spiritual community, or when someone goes through a process of awakening, it's like you go to the highest heights and like you're tapped into the cosmos and you're speaking light language and you know that you're a star seed, but you chose to be here on earth at this moment. And so all of that magic that you're finding up there and all of the information that you're receiving, it's meant for you to ground it into the planet and support the planet, which is all of us, right? Because we're not separate from her. And it's to support all of us and this planet through the process that is happening at this moment. So yeah, that's why, like, sometimes people might call me a hippie jokingly, and I'm like, I'll tell them I'm not a hippie. Like, I'm rooted, I'm grounded, I'm working. Like, yes, I'm Pachamama. I'll sing with you by the fire, but I also know that there's work that we need to do. And I feel like it's very important for our prayers to also be supported by inspired action, right? I'm going to pray for peace on earth, but I'm also going to take inspired action to make it happen and to advocate for it. So thank you for bringing that up, Reina. Very important for us to ground our practice and to offer it, to make an ofrenda to the earth. Like, our work, our practice is our service to this planet, to this earth, to nature, to the animals, to the plants, to humankind.
Definitely noticing a lot of nods from folks who are listening. And, I'm really feeling called to bring in, as we're talking about this, like tethering and grounding and, bringing this into practice and form, it's really making me think of, kind of, this word that you brought in of hippie, or other ways that like sometimes these practices can, be seen as either like pretty or frivolous, or like this idea that these practices aren't um, grounded in actual like communal change and transformation, and that these practices are also in alignment with what is like another epistemological, ontological, another way of perceiving the world, of existing in the world. And I think that obviously, as we know, because we're in this conversation, we understand that the West, or certain powers that be, like to diminish or belittle, or make it seem like what we're doing is not important, right? I think about, like, for example, how much even like imagination, for example, is like made fun of or seen as not real, right? And a lot of these kinds of practices, there are like hierarchies of value that we are having to navigate. And I think, I guess, one thing that I felt like could be potentially important, especially if there are folks here who are wanting to maybe walk in these paths, create their own space for these kinds of practices of reconnecting, remembering, as we're talking about. I'm just thinking about like what we've had to do also to exist within capitalism, right? And what we've had to do to make space for ourselves to be supported, to continue to do this work, knowing that, there are people who maybe don't know the value or don't understand the value of this kind of work. And so I'm curious if that's something that you've had to navigate, what that's been like for you, because I'm imagining there are other folks who maybe are thinking about that or wondering about that. Like, how has that been to like be within this world that does have these like value judgments, or like, perceives these practices in certain ways, when we know how important they are and world changing they are? Yeah, curious what comes up.
For me, it feels almost like I understand that there is this game called capitalism and everyone is playing. And that, because I was brought up within that structure and raised within that structure, and that structure is still in place, right? I have to play. But because of the work that I do, like my life completely changed, to the point where I came to understand that I couldn't work for another person or for a company because I want to take time off when I'm bleeding, right? Something so simple as that, understanding that if I want to honor that for myself, for my body, for my well-being, I can't work for somebody else, right? So that was one of the first things that I realized for myself is I had to create my own work. And um I've encountered also, I feel like sometimes people don't might not want to give an energy exchange because it's not something like because my services are not something tangible, right? It's not like when you go to get a haircut and you can see it right away, like, oh, my hair changed, it's now a different color, it's a different shape. But there's so much work that we're doing behind the scenes. Like we're literally opening portals, we're journeying between the worlds, we're like talking to spirit beings, we're like retrieving soul pieces, we're helping integrate. And it's tiring, right? It is a lot of work. Like I can feel it in my body, I can feel it in my energy levels. And so, and sometimes I wish that more people would understand that. Like you might not come out of this, like you'll come out of the session like feeling a shift, but that shift is going to continue moving energy, moving things in your life for days and weeks, sometimes months before you see like how that doorway, that portal that we opened during that session, how it moved and rearranged your reality, right? And it might take days, weeks, months, years. And I've had people that years later, weeks later, they send me a message and they're like, I can look back at that moment and that work that we did together and how things moved, right?
You know, it's interesting to bring this into the conversation, because I think one of the things to keep in mind is all services rendered require an energetic exchange. So, of some sort. Right? If it's not even the curanderos or curanderas, it was still an energetic exchange. You brought, food, you did an errand for, like, there was still an energetic exchange. So, this idea that que, ay, no se debe recibir dinero y quién sabe qué, because there are some people who feel like that, right? And, or believe in that. And cool, great. Then we're probably not aligned to work together. Because there's still, services rendered require an energetic exchange, right? Even you working at a 9 to 5, your time was services rendered, and that's what they're giving you money for. Right? So if we understand this as an energetic exchange, then money is energy, money is vibration, right? And at some point, you still have to decide if you want to make the shift. And you don't need a practitioner to help you make that shift. That's you. That is your own choice, your autonomy, right? And you do that. Now, if you need some support along the way, there are many who can come and support you. And that's maybe when you find one of us, right? Or folks like us. But I was telling this to a friend of mine the other day. It's like, my practice is not the session that I do. Yes, you get to experience it in a session. My practice, I have to be consistent in my practice. Otherwise, I won't be at my optimal or best. And even when I, work with practitioners, in these different trainings, training them in different energy modalities, I was like, there's going to be those days where you just don't feel right. But guess what? The work works because it's not about you. It's going through you. But you've been doing your practice, right? You've been working the system, amplifying that vibration. And so the work is going to work. The work is going to work. And so también it's about having our ego step aside, right? You're not paying me, and it's not me. It's this co-creative relationship that we're having in this one moment. All of us here in this circle, because it is a circle, everyone joining us, right? We are in a co-creative relationship right now. And whatever you need in this moment, take it, right? Take it. If you need to be off camera, if you need to go get some water, if you need to burn some sacred smokes, right? Whatever you need. You also have autonomy here. Because I think part of what also happens because of how we are structured in our society, the idea that someone can fix me, we then unknowingly give our power, then I'll give it to you. And it's like, no, it's not mine to take. That is not mine to take. But we'll look at it. Let's be with it together in this moment, right? And it's it's all these conversations about worth, right? And value, and and you might walk away with a big shift, and what unfolds afterwards may not be what you wanted, but it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. So it's not something any practitioner did, but you helped open the way. And I often tell practitioners that I train, our job is not that lucrative. We're spiritual janitors. Cleaning and cleansing. That's all we're doing. Cleaning and cleansing. right? And so when you break it down like that, for me, it's just like, oh, okay, this is how we show up. This is how we are of service.
Yeah, like a word that keeps coming up for me as I'm hearing both of you is care. And I'm thinking about, different maracame or medicine people that I know from my community who are receiving those energy exchanges as you're naming, right? And but it's not really seen as a transactional thing. It's more a part of, being in community, right? And feeling supported enough to be able to show up in the way that you're meant to show up. And I think that is something that to me feels yeah, really big to name too. I love what you were saying, Reina, this notion that, it's not really the money is only able to help you then continue to do your practice and be able to show up to the altar, be able to show up to your commitments, right? Be able to show up in a way where you're able to offer care and support. And in many ways, like, I definitely, a big kind of spell that I feel like I've been working with in my life is just reimagining us being brought back into that web of care and being able to really be there to support each other and to build another way of relating and existing together. And, I do feel like this is kind of going back to that word that you shared of remembering, which I think is a big part of this is remembering ways that our communities have organized and shown up together in ways that really do give us another sense of possibility within this world. And I don't want to go too much into this myself, but I feel like one thing I'm feeling called to bring in too is that, I really feel like a big part of my own journey with this has been really seeing the impact of colonization on myself and also remembering and reconnecting with my Indigenous communities, my Indigenous body, my Indigenous practices, and the wisdom that we hold and that we carry within our bodies. And I know that that's something that feels also really important to bring into this space is that, many of us are holding or are, have wisdom that is a part of our lineages, whether those are actual physical blood lineages or spiritual etheric lineages as well. And I'm curious if that's something that you all would want to talk a little bit about, of like kind of remembering, reconnecting, especially if folks who are here maybe are like, I don't know if I have that direct connection, or I don't know what that is. Because for myself, I'm going to name that I spent 30 years of my life without my family ever talking about it. I knew it was there. I felt it, I would have dreams, I would hear my ancestors speak to me, but because of colonization, like my parents never felt safe talking about it with me. And so just want to name that too, is that there might be folks here who maybe don't know who their ancestors are. And so just wanting to bring that in and curious if anything comes up as I bring that into this space.
Yes, I can relate to that. So at the beginning, I was able to mention the different lineages that I come from, but that was not always the case. Again, I'm the child of immigrants and refugees. My siblings and I, we grew up away from our family. And, Pleasant, El Salvador, there was a civil war, and before the civil war in the early 1900s, most of the indigenous population were killed. And so we lost a lot of our grandfathers and grandmothers and wisdom keepers. And so for me, the information of my lineages, of the stories, of the medicine started coming in through the dream time, in my dreams. And then, as part of my practice, I started building an altar to my ancestors, and I created space to chat with them. And I would tell them, I don't know who you are. I just know my abuela, mi abuelo. I don't know who you are, but I'm here, and I want to connect to you, and I want to learn from you, and I want to reweave those threads. And they started coming through and they started sharing information with me to the point where I was able to heal my relationship with my biological father and reach out to him and ask him, where do we come from? And when he shared, he was basically just confirming everything that I had received through dreams and through meditations and through journeys. And I share this because if you, like me, feel lost and disconnected, know that there is a path to reconnect and to remember where you come from. And it's literally flowing within your veins. It's in you. And it's about creating space to commune, to connect, to listen. Once you start shifting that energy, people show up in the physical plane. The right book comes to you, the right teacher appears. You get invited to go to a ceremony, and then things start opening up.
Wow. And I think that's key, right? You just shared. It's like you have to create that space. Many of our practices are place-based because this is where it emerged, right? But it doesn't mean that it's locked in that space. We do acknowledge those lineages and those traditions, but key is the willingness to open up and listen. And guess what? It's gonna sound like your voice. It's gonna sound just like your voice sometimes, and it's gonna be like, is that me? Is that them? Ask. I think that was one of the biggest revelations for me. You can ask. Who are you? Who are you? Tell me more. This is who I am, right? This is how I want to be in connection with you, in relation to you. But también no sean pedinches, right? Don't just call on them because you want something. Like, really, this is a co-creative relationship. Like, I mean, if you were to do that to someone in real life, guess what? They'd probably be ghosting you. So, like, be reciprocal. Be reciprocal, right? Just be in relation, be in conversation. And yeah, right? I know ancestors ghosting you. It's a good one, right? But I think the other thing is, and I shared this today on my post. It is about trusting. And Mark Nepo, beautiful writer, shared once that trust is a return to the heart. And I love that definition of trust, right? This return to the heart. And I think what we've been sharing in this space is how all these practices have really returned to us to connect to our heart. And in the Mexica traditions, this is the space of the soul, right? Gary Sukoff, psychologist, wrote The Seat of the Soul. But yeah, many indigenous cultures know that this is where the soul sits, right? And so this is one of our many vitality centers. So to trust is to, revitalize that connection, right? That connection. And there's so many different practices that teach you in one way, shape, or form how to do that. If you meditate, you do that by just being. Being. That's it. And there's nothing more than that. But we make it more complicated, no? We have to have all the accessories. Which is fun. I mean, of course, accessorize. I have my mini altar here. Why not, right? So, it's like, yeah, we make it pretty. Make it pretty. But you could also make it simple. I love Caitlin Grania, who, Mother of the Mystics. Just a simple boveda, right? Glass of water, a white candle, and a beautiful white cloth. It could be that simple, right? But really, it's just your intention to connect. I think that's key.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought in relationship because that feels really important. And, bringing in this, this idea that it is like a connection that you have, and that, I think one thing that came up as you were sharing, Reina, was I remember when I first opened up to really commune with my ancestors, there was like an overwhelm of, because there was many years of them wanting to reach out to me and speak to me, and being able to ask them to slow down, right? Or to say like, can we have a break? Can we have a moment? I need to like focus on my homework or something, right? Like that there is like a relationship where you can ask questions or share, and really also bringing in this idea of being able to offer and to also ask, like, what are you needing? What would be helpful for you? What is wanting to show up for you too? And I'm noticing the kitty behind you, Mother. So cute.
Kitty cat stairway to heaven. And speaking of kittens and plants, I'm reflecting on how like nature and us as part of nature, we're literally wired and made in a way so we can have these experiences where we can tap into spirit, right? Plants, I think of them as bridges that help us connect to the other side. And I'm not talking about like you don't have to go to an ayahuasca ceremony to have the experience. I find that just sitting down with a cup of tea and communing with that plant opens the space for sometimes ancestors, angelic beings, and other guides to come in and talk to us. And it's just about creating that space and knowing that we are supported to have these experiences and to open those doorways. Um, we just had Samhain and Day of the Dead, and there was a lot of talk about the veil is thinning, but yet the veil is thin all year long. It's a veil. We can literally just like part it away, lift it anytime we choose to. We don't have to wait for Samhain or Day of the Dead. Like any day, any moment that you choose, I'm going to create space to commune with my heart, to commune with my ancestors, to commune with my guides, to commune with the earth, to commune with plants and kittens and star beings. Like we have access to that. And I feel like I do what I do to help people remember that we are all intuitive, we're all tapped in. We all have the ability to communicate with trees and plants and animals. And we forgot, right? And here in Turtle Island, this was told to me by a tree. It hasn't been that long. It's been about 500 years or so. And there are some trees that still remember when we were all in right relationship. And from the perspective of a tree that can live to be hundreds of years old, they're like, it's not that long. You can still turn her around. And we are in that moment in the timeline of humanity where we are remembering, we are reconnecting.
So grateful for that kitty coming in and bringing forward all of that magic. And I'm just really feeling touched by what you just shared, because I do feel like, especially if folks don't feel that direct connection to their ancestors, or it's painful, or it's hard, or they're unknown, the plants and the animals are our ancestors. They're also portals, right? As you're naming up, they can open up possibility for us to tune in and connect. And yeah, I'm just really just sitting with, how beautiful it is that we're surrounded by these relationships, by these connections, and that there are so many plants and animals that do remember that right relationship, and that it is this turning towards this coming back together, this reunion, this remembering, as we've been talking about, of bringing back into relationship. And I think that is something that has been so transformative for me, especially as someone who grew up feeling so alone. I think that was what I was really feeling, was like the weight of a white supremacist narrative that I was alone, right? And the more I've turned towards the relationships that I'm surrounded by, I've really witnessed just how much love there is and how much care there is, and also how much guidance there is. And I also really want to name that through the Afrofuturist and Indigenous futurist lens too, that if you find it hard to find an ancestor, you could make one up. You could use your sacred imagination to create an ancestor, one that will really support you in this moment. And so that's again kind of remembering that we have the sacred gift of imagination for a purpose, for a reason, and the things that are possible when we turn towards our imagination to be able to create things that we are needing. So wanting to also bring that in along with the plants and the crystals and the animals, because our relationship to our imagination is also really powerful. And it is also a place where I do feel there is so much potential for us too. So wanting to really name that for folks who maybe are needing a space like that to be able to create, to get creative, because I think a lot of what we've talked about is, these are practices that have such a deep lineage, and then they're also emerging, they're also being created by us in this moment. And I want to just like bring something in that like I keep hearing kind of being brought forward by my ancestors is a word in Birarica, which is makuyeka. And it's been deep medicine for me, this word, because I grew up with this phrase that I heard a lot, which was no soy de aquí ni de allá, which means I'm not from here, I'm not from there. And it's really something that a lot of folks who are diasporic say because we exist in between, right? And the word makuyeka in Birarica really means like I'm from here, I'm from there, I'm from everywhere. I exist in all spaces. And it's been such a deep, deep balm. And I think it really connects to what you were just sharing, Mother Hawad, of a plant can be a portal to open us up to angels, to open us up to our ancestors. And in the same way that there are portals everywhere, we are that portal too. And as we travel, we can connect with different lands. And yes, there is importance of sacred lands, of certain lineages, but also knowing that the sacred exists in every moment, no matter where we are too. And that is also something that I think it's really important to remember for us, because it can also sometimes feel like we have to be in a certain place, whether that's physically or emotionally or spiritually, to be able to access some of these things. But they are available at any place. So yeah, curious I saw both of you all nodding. So yeah, I would love to just see what you'll have to say.
I just really want to encourage everyone to get familiar with the trees, plants, and animals that live around you. I remember reading a few years ago that children nowadays, they can identify, I think, about 500 different logos, but not the name of a tree. And that was like, for me. And so I made it a point to, I show up to a place and the first thing that I start scanning for is like, what are the trees here? Who are the relatives that are here? Who are the guardians that are here? And do I know their names? I even got one of those plant identification apps because I wanted to know. And now, like especially in LA, Tongvaland, like I can go for a walk and I will start pointing out trees, like, oh, that's a pirul, that's an oak tree, that's a maple tree, and most people don't know the names of the trees. So I love sharing with them because it's important. And yes, we are future ancestors, and we should be teaching our children the names of our relatives because that's what trees, plants, and animals are. And they are also invested in what's happening right now. They understand that whatever we do or don't do, it's affecting them. And so that is why they are so keen about communicating with us. Go sit by a tree and hold the intention to just listen. They will share so much. They have been here. Trees have told me they've been here before humans were here. They will continue to be here long after we're gone. So they are plant sisters. Trees are portals. to learn their names, know who your relatives are, and teach the children around you to know the names of the trees and the plants.
Yeah, I mean, even one of the institutions that maybe we uphold, the Oxford Dictionary, took out many words of nature. And artists created a song bringing those words back, right? So, and that's recent. That's like in the last, I don't know, 3-5 years. But in relation to how we are intending to be creating this dynamic with one another and our plant allies and crystal allies and animal allies, it is also important that we do that with one another, right? That we do that with one another. And I love that I am from all places and spaces. I love that you share that word, Edgar. That is so beautiful. And, I think that intentionality of creating this reciprocal exchange is a shift from the consumption of things. And so that's, I think, one contribution that many of our practices do, is that it shows us how to be creating this reciprocal exchange. And I would also encourage you all to find who are those indigenous folks in your lineage, in the lands that your people come from, because each land has those roots, has those histories, has those stories. And we may know them through like gods and goddesses that people produce in tarot decks and oracle decks, right? Like they may come through that way. Great. Like, see who you're connecting to, right? See who's coming through as well. But this process of being a good steward is part of the work that we are asked to do, and that's knowing their names and being in relation, right? And that's important. Edgar, do you think are there any questions in the chat? I know that there's been a lot of great commentary, which I love. It's been beautiful to see that, but I'm wondering if there's any questions there that we can start fielding or answering.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm gonna maybe like look through these. If anyone does have any questions, we're definitely gonna be moving into that, like kind of having more conversation, and please feel free to put them in the chat if there are any questions that come up for us. I don't know if I've missed any. But I just want to, quickly touch upon what you were saying, because I think it's really important to something that I've been really sitting with is, what you're naming this, our practices making space or opening up space for this reciprocal relationship, right? This way of honoring our relatedness. And it really makes me think of, at least in the Vidarica community, there are yearly practices of coming back to honor different deities or plants or elements that we are in relationship with. And these, as you were saying earlier, we're not just asking them, can you rain, please? Or can you help food grow? We're saying we are here because we are in relationship and we are offering, we remember the contracts, the agreements that we have together. And we are coming back every year to remember those agreements. And so I think, what you were just saying, it is in a way like our practices open up space for us to remember that way of relating with each other, and that we can really hold each other in that way of having like sacred pacts with each other, and ways that we can really support each other and come back to each other. And just really wanting to highlight that, because that feels important to share. But I want to invite folks in. Definitely let us know if you have questions. We did want us, before we maybe move into questions, feel free to start typing them or thinking about what you want to ask. I did want us to share a little bit. We do have offerings that we have for folks. And so if we could please just talk a little bit about them. These are offerings that we're offering here for people if you would like to connect with us more deeply. I wanted to share myself that I'm offering a 9-card tarot reading. You could see the link here. You go to my website and it's called A New Earth because it's called a New Earth Tarot Spell. It's a 9-card tarot reading that is meant to help you figure out what feels important for 2024. I am working a lot with structure. I'm a Virgo rising, so structure feels like something that I love to play with and work with a lot. And so I've built in both an kind of more pragmatic structure and also a spiritual structure within this tarot reading. I'm actually like in front of the tarot spread here. And if you go to the website, you will see more information about this reading, what it consists of, and you can book it by emailing me. I'm only doing it on one day this month, and I only have 5 openings available. So definitely email me if you have any questions or would like to talk a little bit about it. So yeah, thank you. And then if we want to go to the next one.
That's me. So I offer divination and spiritual guidance through Pláticas, tarot readings, and clairvoyant readings. And during the session, we basically open sacred space and we invite your spirit team to give you guidance, to give you perspective, to bring clarity. And yeah, I'm excited to connect with you and let's talk to your team and see what messages are ready to come through for you.
So I'm gifting you all a free guidebook. It's Live Your Love Story, and it has different prompts and reflections and guided experiences hooked in with that. And so you access that through my signing up for my email. And it's a free guidebook. And then I follow up with you, sharing with you another free course that comes with it as well. So I hope it resonates with you, and I would love to co-create with you as well.
Thank you. And so, yeah, we would love to just open up space for folks if you want to either share in the chat. I think you should maybe also be able to unmute yourself too if you'd like to ask a question that you may have or share a comment, something that's come through for you. I would love to just invite you all in. Oh, I love you so much, Angela. Thank you so much for being here.
It's been so great to see so many familiar faces.
Yeah.
I have my over here, and I'm like seeing the whole room, and I was like, oh my God.
I have something I want to share because they're like, hey, since we have so many people tuning in from Tongva, from Los Angeles, hiking in Griffith Park, I received the message, Griffith Park is the heart and lungs of Los Angeles, and no one is really making offerings to the heart and lungs of the city. So please go make your prayers, make your offerings, because there is magic there. There's a lot of nature. There's a lot of medicine. Tongva was a land of medicine people, and we have a lot of medicinal plants available to us. So if you're in my homeland, one of my homelands, please go make some prayers, some offerings to the trees and the mountains there. Thank you.
I have a special tree in my neighborhood in Atwater Village, which is pretty close to Griffith Park. It's actually by the horse stables. If you go to by the LA River, on the other side is Griffith Park, but on the other side is the LA River and the stables. And there's this one tree, and I have this weird connection with it. And I go every day and I pray to it and give it flowers and offerings. Like, I don't know why, but I don't even know what it is. I don't know what kind of tree it is because I'm not really good at botanical knowledge. So I should like take a picture, and like they have the apps that you can identify the plants. And so I should do that. But I've been praying to this tree for like years already, and I don't know what it is. So I feel like you asking that, maybe that helps you connect to that. So I will put a flower in your name to that tree.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that you're just like your intuition just was like this is the one, you know. Yeah, and I see Sandra shared that they always make offerings also in Griffith Park and go hiking. Yes. Yeah, anyone else have any questions for us? Things that you would like to know? Oh, I see Eric has a question that I'll read out loud. Noticing a lot of fellow queer, non-binary folks in the Zoom. So can we talk about and acknowledge how we are living liminal beings with and sharing our queer medicine? Yeah, I love that question. And yeah, I'm curious, Eric, if anything comes up for you around that you want to share that feels important, either in the chat or unmuting yourself. Yeah, do either of you have some thoughts about that?
I'll go ahead and unmute this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Eric Hansen Sandoval. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm talking to you all from Tongaland in Los Angeles. Yeah, this is something that came to me like earlier this year regarding like queer medicine and like embodying that and how to embody that. The term queer medicine came to me through a ceremony like around like a year or so ago. And so I stuck with that. I was like, okay, like what is queer medicine? How do I embody queer medicine? And simply recognizing that, like growing up, recognizing that everyone or myself has like the embodiment of the masculine, the feminine, and even some of our ancestors, some of our elders had these understandings, even dressed in ways that incorporated both that masculine and feminine, or some of them are straight up shapeshifters. There is all this like queer medicine that is there historically that sometimes us growing up queer, we didn't get to recognize that early on or didn't have examples of that. But now we like going through historic records, talking to having more access to resources, we found out that's like there's a lot of it. And that's something that I feel is really important to acknowledge in ourselves, in also reminding ourselves too, like we view the world through a different lens or different lenses, even just from that queer lens itself, is in a sense a portal, is is medicine. And we share that by existing and through our experiences.
Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing that. That's so beautiful. And I saw a lot of people nodding as you were sharing. And yeah, I think the word that came up as you were sharing is that, I think word that Raina brought into this circle was remembering, right? This sacred remembering of our queer and trans lineages that we are a part of too. And that many of our communities have brought queer and trans people into these places of, being shapeshifters or being sacred passageway people or people who do live within that liminal space or support people within that transitional space, or who are able to create possibilities where maybe things aren't feeling possible. And I think there is this sacred remembering that is happening of our communities. And I think for myself too, I think it's been really profound to connect with other queer and trans Birarica people and to be able to build these networks and to say that we exist and that the culture, the art, the wisdom that we're bringing forward is really important to be sharing. And in the same way where I feel like these practices are making something else possible in this world, so is us really honoring and bringing forward our authentic selves in the ways that we show up. And yeah, I would love to invite either Raina or Mother Hawad if there's anything you want to share about this too.
Um, I'm thinking, what comes to me is it's actually an experience that I had talking to a pitaya, a dragon fruit plant, which I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're like this, they're very queer. They're like this vine, but they're also a cactus, and they produce these beautiful flowers. And in conversation with a dragon fruit, um, I started I feel like I started to come to terms with my queerness. It's always been there, but because of the way that I was raised and how I grew up, I always kept it. I feel like I was always pushing aside this part of myself. And in conversation with this plant, the plant was like, it's a non-issue. Like we're but for humans it's such an issue right now. You guys are like figuring it out, but it's a non-issue. Like, look at me. Like, I'm not a cactus, I'm not a vine, I'm both, and I'm neither. And like, if you look at nature, nature is very queer, right? And for me, queer medicine, it's just, I feel like it's just me showing up my medicine because I am a queer being. My medicine is queer. And I also feel like, us as queer beings, and we embody the middle path, right? There's this term, the middle path, which is neither right nor left. It's not female, not male. It's like the in-betweenness. And we are that. We are that divine union. And we are an alternate, like we are we are an alternative to this binary that we have grown up in. And it's also beautiful to see how things are shifting and changing. And you talk to younger generations now, for them it's such a natural, normal, it's a non-issue, right? And for us older generations, we had to pull the machete. We had to pave the way and say, we are here. We've always been here. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, so we have about maybe 5 or 6 more minutes left. So so grateful for this to be brought in, because I do feel like it's a big part of what has also brought us together. And I'm curious if this is bringing up anything in folks that they want to share, or any questions that they have for us. Just knowing we have a couple more minutes left. I see. Yeah, do you want to share, Alma?
Hi, it's really good to see y'all in the same space. Edgar and Reina, I know you from different contexts, so when I got this, I was like, all right, and I just met you, Tanya, recently online, so I was like, I gotta be there. I was like, let's go. It's good to see you again, Reina. Yeah, it's been a wild ride since we last saw each other. But something that's been coming through recently from a teacher that suddenly appeared in my life, was that art and healing are the same thing, and that art is what heals the soul. And um, he was saying this thing a lot, which is to become art rather than being the artist, to live your life as art. And it's something I'm thinking about a lot. I think I'm moving through a lot of spaces in which I had to like lean into overtly healing practices, because the art spaces didn't have the supports necessary to help me process what was coming up in making art. And I think that yeah, I'd like to hear some thoughts that or experiences y'all have had with combining these, seemingly separate aspects. I think there's a lot of, in my experience, sort of militarism that seeps into art institutions and art training in young people. And I don't think that's necessary. I think that dedication and technique and rigor can be taught in a different way. And I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
I'll start if you don't mind. You know, for me, the work that I do now is no different than where I started as an artist. And it was interesting. I had this experience publishing my second book, Spring into Love. My first book is a book of poetry, Santa Perversa and Other Erotic Poems. And when I was talking to the marketing manager, their question was, why did it take you 20 years? And I was like, taken aback because I got caught up in the time in the linear timeline. And then I remembered it's like, well, this is just what the work was finally ready to come out in this expression. And so for me to write or to create guided experiences, that is my creative expression that comes from my poetry, that comes from performance art, right? To create the altar, the ofrenda, that is installation art. And it's like the energy of the objects are teaching me something and showing me how they want to be presented. And yeah, we are meant to be creative people. This is why we're here. We are here to create. How we create is not always for consumption. And I think that's where the art school gets it a little prioritizes the idea of consumption. Like someone needs to collect, someone needs to buy, someone needs to validate your existence as an artist. But eso no tiene nada que ver. We are here to create, right? Our elders created in the kitchen magical things con like whatever they had, right? And so Chicanos call it rascuache, but it's just like name it what you want. But the fact is that the creation of things is with what we have, and it's to bring beauty and love and light in the world. And however you get to do that, go for it. Go for it, because it's for you. It's really for you. And then if others get to see it, awesome.
Yeah, and and I'm really feeling called to, kind of go back to something that Mother Hawad said earlier around your life becoming art, or art kind of your life becoming your biggest art project, right? This way that, we can reclaim the space that art gives us within this world that does try to divide, but we can really use our practices or our passions to create the life that we want in the way that we want it to look. And I, I'm so grateful for the sacred spaces that I've had with other witches and healers, because they really helped teach me like the sacredness of art making and how it is so deeply connected to healing and community building and self-discovery and play and failure. And these are all things that I brought with me into these like more militarized spaces. Like, I went to UC Berkeley for my MFA, and I'm so glad that I walked in not alone, but holding so many witches and healers and medicine people with me, because I know what art is for, and I could hear their interpretations and also really kind of come back to what's true for me and what I've really felt in my body when I've been with other people who really understand the purpose of art or understand the potential that we have when we get to create reality together. I think that's like a big part of like where art can help us really understand that we are creatives, right? As you were saying, Reina, that's why we're here, and we get to make reality together. Yeah.
I'm an art school dropout because I have a really hard time with dogma and with very rigid structures. And I went to art school because I've always been a writer. And after dropping out, I one thing that did happen in art school is I ate mushrooms for the first time, and that blasted me open. And now, my art is an expression of myself. and I channel my creative practice and my art through the altars that I build, through my healing sessions. I like to think of my healing sessions as an experience, right? The lighting, the way that it smells when you walk into the room, the sounds, the crystal grids that I lay on the body, the plants that I lay on the body. That is all part of my expression. It's also a way for me to love the person that I'm sharing my art with. Building the altars, I built an altar and for ancestors at a gathering, and it took me 2 days of literally creating the mandalas with beans, like bean by bean by bean by bean by bean by bean, and every bean is a prayer, every bean an intention, and it took hours. And people were like, "You have so much patience," and I was like, "I love doing this because for me this is really meditative, and that is actually what takes me." I might be having a very chaotic day. I might be feeling very ungrounded. As soon as I start laying out an altar, it brings me back. And it's so healing for myself, and it's healing for the people that get to look at that altar. And that is how I'm sharing my art. And it is healing. Art is healing. And that's why we call this the art of Curanderismo, because it's the expression of our soul and our heart into the world.
Mm.
And you can create your own path. Remember that. If you don't like the structure that you're in, change it. Create your own.
Yeah, this feels like a really great place for us to start to come to a close, and just want to say thank you so much for everyone who's been here. I want to thank you so much, Mother Hawad and Reina, for showing up so divinely tonight, and want to thank Philosophical Research Society for bringing us together in this way. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or want to be in further conversation with us. Please connect with us. You have our contact info. Yeah, and just maybe a nice way for us to all end. I would love for us to maybe unmute ourselves and just say goodbye to each other. Just as a way to really bring everyone into the space.
Mil gracias. Qué gusto, de veras.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you for the beauty that you've shared. Good medicine, inside and out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything.
Yes.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Please space for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing space.
Hasta luego.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for everything that you've shared. I appreciate being here very much.
Gracias a todos.
So much. This has been great.
Everyone.
I love you three so much. All three.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you guys. Thank you for all the medicine. Thank you.
Much love,
Gracias.
everyone. Have a wonderful night.
The circle.
Buenas noches. Adios.
Yeah.
Buenas noches. And
Buenas
thank you to all the
noches.
beings and unseen
Yes.
that joined us here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you to all. We release you and we thank you.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.